Let me tell you a story about the wicked Feral. A long time ago there was a man named Harold and his cat named Midnight. He was Harold's best friend and he took Midnight trick-or-treating. His best friend John wanted to kidnap Midnight so that Harold would follow him to his house for a surprise party because it was his birthday. So he snuck behind Harold with a clown mask and grabbed Midnight and stuffed him in a bag. Harold screamed, "Give me my cat back, you motherfucker," but John already got in the van, but he drove slowly so Harold would follow, and John drove in an abandoned path because it was a shortcut, but John didn't realize that Harold had jumped in the van. Now Harold came up to the clown and started punching in the face, snatching the bag from his hand, but the van swerved and Harold and Midnight fell off the van into a huge deep pothole. The van stopped. John looked in the hole, but he couldn't see anything. He feared the worst and thought to himself, "If I call for help I'll for sure go to jail," so he fled, but little did he know Harold was still alive. Midnight, barely holding on, that brought tears in his eyes, but he tried to brighten the mood by saying, "It's okay buddy, I'm sure we'll get help and get out of here." But second turned into minutes, the hours, then days. Midnight passed away due to blood loss and Harold was starving. He had no choice but to eat his best friend. The taste was unbearable and the blood got everywhere. Harold was sick but full. As the month passes, Harold would to not only lose his weight but also his mind, as every night he would hear distorted meowing in his head keeping up at night. So with bloodshot eyes he begins to rip flesh off his body and eat it. He also took the remaining cat bones and made a mask to quiet down the noise, but one day he had an idea. He would use the sharp bones to stab the rock to climb out, but cat bones were too small for his weight, so he plunged his hand in his chest and with a blood-curdling cry he ripped out his own ribs. "Oh, don't worry Midnight, it's just two, I have a lot more," he said with a big grin as he begins to climb up the walls. Pain is all over his body and weakened by blood loss. Most would die by Harold was no longer human because he went feral, and at last he got out of that hole. He looked down as he saw tracks of the criminal who was responsible for this. With an evil laugh he sprinted the path on all four to John's house. John was sitting next to his girlfriend ready for the next step, but suddenly the window broke as a beast with a skull on his face and blood dripping everywhere into the feral's eye. He couldn't believe his own friend drove that van wearing the mask which was hanging on the wall. With rage the wicked feral picked up a shovel and banged John and his girlfriend's head in the cry and beg for mercy, but it was no use. Harold was left in that hole to die, only to be turned into a monster, so he started banging them with the shovel again and again and again.